We'd been driving for 2 days straight. It was me, my boyfriend Ryan, and my younger sister Leah. We were heading home to Maryland after spending a week visiting our grandmother. The plan was to make the drive in 3 days, taking turns at the wheel, sleeping in shifts, and surviving mostly on caffeine and gas station food. By the second night, we were somewhere in Oklahoma. Long, flat stretches of nothing. Ryan had been driving for hours and his eyelids were heavy. I told him to pull off the highway so I could take over. We spotted a rest stop sign, exit 212 facilities ahead, so we turned off. When we arrived, the lot was dimly lit, with just 2 flickering lamps and a single vending machine glowing like a beacon. Ryan walked around outside and stretched a little. Leah mentioned she wanted to use the restroom, so she hopped out and headed to the stalls. I stayed near the car, sipping lukewarm coffee, scrolling through directions. The map kept spinning as if we'd lost service. I remember thinking that's strange, but didn't dwell on it. Then Ryan crouched down by the front passenger tire. "Babe, this tire's looking low." I walked over and looked, and he was right. It wasn't flat, but definitely soft. "There's an air pump over there," he said, pointing to the far side of the lot near a small utility building. "We should fill it before we get back on the highway." I just nodded. We got back in, and I drove us over to the air pump, parking right beside it. Ryan got out and started hooking up the hose while I leaned against the car, scrolling through my phone trying to get a signal. My messages wouldn't send as the little wheel just kept spinning. A few moments later, headlights swept across the asphalt. A car then pulled up. The driver got out, a middle-aged man wearing a brown jacket stretching his arms. He glanced in our direction briefly, then walked toward the men's restroom without a word. I looked at Ryan, who was focused on the tire gauge. The hiss of the air pump filled the silence. I kept scrolling as the signal was still weak and the map wouldn't stop buffering. A few minutes later, the man came out of the restroom, walked back to his car, and drove off. His taillights disappeared down the highway before I even thought much of it. A few minutes later, Ryan was finished with the tire and wound up the air hose. "All set. Should be good now," he said. I checked my phone and noticed Leah had been in the bathroom for nearly 10 minutes. I then walked back around to the room stall and called out, "Leah?" No answer. Ryan walked over as well, calling her name. Still nothing. He went inside the women's restroom as I waited outside. Then there was bang, as if something slammed from inside. Ryan shouted something I couldn't make out, and I ran inside with my heart pounding so hard it hurt. When I reached the door, Ryan was standing frozen in the entryway with his face pale. Inside there were 2 stalls, and they were both empty. No sign of Leah. We searched everywhere, the restrooms, behind the building, the lot, even the tree line beyond the fence. Nothing. Her phone was in the car and her backpack was in the back seat. It was like she'd simply vanished. Ryan called 911 and the operator told us to stay put as officers were on their way. We stood under those flickering lamps with the weight of the silence pressing down on us. The police arrived 20 minutes later and 2 officers came out. They took our statements, searched the area again with flashlights, and ended up calling for backup. A few minutes later, more cars arrived. One of the officers stated that they'd checked the security cameras. Security cameras? I hadn't even noticed them. We waited outside, still in shock and disbelief, while officers moved in and out of the rest stop building. Finally, after what felt like hours, one of the officers approached us, but her expression was unreadable. "We found something on the cameras," she said quietly. "You're going to want to see this." They led us inside to a small office behind the vending machines. A grainy monitor showed 4 camera angles: the parking lot, the restroom entrances, the vending area, and the highway exit ramp. The officer rewound the footage and stated, "Watch here." On the screen, I saw our car pull into the lot. Ryan and I got out. Leah walked toward the restrooms. Then we moved the car to the air pump. The other vehicle then pulled into our old spot moments later. The man got out and went to the men's restroom. Then Leah emerged from the women's restroom. She looked around, saw the car in the spot where we'd originally parked, and then my stomach completely dropped. She walked straight up to the car, opened the back door, got in. "No, Leah," I whispered. The man came out of the restroom a few moments later, got into the car, and drove away. He never looked in the back seat. He never even noticed her. The officer paused the footage. "We've got his plate." Based on the timeline and the highway cameras, we tracked him eastbound for about 40 miles before the vehicle stopped on the shoulder. The officer said, "We found your sister there. She's safe. A trucker picked her up and called it in. She's at a hospital in Tulsa, shaken up but unharmed." I sat there confused, trying to process what I just heard. She said the man realized she was in the car about 30 miles down the road as he heard her moving. He then pulled over, told her to get out, and drove off. He just left her on the side of the highway. A couple units are currently en route to pick him up. I felt everything at once. Relief, rage, horror. I couldn't speak. Ryan put his head in his hands. Leah had climbed into a stranger's car by mistake. He panicked and abandoned a teenage girl on a dark highway in the middle of nowhere. All because we'd moved our car to fill a tire. The officer put a hand on my shoulder. "We're taking you to her now." As we drove toward Tulsa, I stared out the window at the endless stretch of highway, the broken white lines flickering past. I kept replaying it in my mind. Leah stepping out of that restroom, seeing what she thought was our car in the same spot we'd parked, climbing in without hesitation. How close we'd come to never finding her, and how easily someone could just disappear.